if you didn't have a phone for a day, what would you do?
I'd go on a hike.
I'd go back to sleep.
Hello, and welcome to Reality Checks. I'm Brian Reitz. This is the show where we ask Americans anything and then ask our guests to predict the results. For this survey, we actually asked 600 high school and middle school students their thoughts on cell phones and cell phone bans. And we're joined today by Max Steinman from Do Something Strategic, and Shaun, a high school student who did not complete the survey, but is here to weigh in and give predictions as well. So welcome, Max and Shaun. Max, do you want to kick things off and talk a little bit about Do Something Strategic, and kind of Shaun is a member of Do Something?
Sure. Thanks so much, Brian. Really great to be on the show. So Do Something Strategic is a consultancy that sits within Do Something. Do Something is the hub for youth-centered leadership and impact. We have 1 million members. And so Do Something Strategic partners with other organizations in developing strategies to engage the next generation in purpose. And we do that by tapping into the perspectives of our 1 million members. So we really co-create directly with young people. And this issue of cell phones that we're going to speak about today, cell phone bans, is really interesting to us because we actually think that legislators, school administrators are not necessarily listening enough to what young people think about having technology in schools, both in terms of the policies and then how they're being rolled out. So really excited to chat today.
Cool. And yeah, welcome, Shaun. And what is your kind of thought on this as well?
So hi, I'm Shaun. I was a member of the Do Something EMBER initiative, in which a couple of young individuals from across America were given a $250 micro grant to essentially start their own nonprofits tackling mental health in a community of their choice. My project revolved around a social media page that was called the For Us Page project. Basically just spreading positivity throughout the internet and the cyberspace. My relation to, I guess, phone usage is, I'd say, relatively unhealthy. I'm a part of the few that kind of, a little bit of a TikTok junkie, if you will.
I don't know if it's a few. I think it's a many.
I think it's a very, very large amount of people. So this is kind of an issue that I relate to personally, and I'd love to share my inputs and see how other people agree with me.
Cool. Well, we can dig into the results. And just to be clear, neither of you have seen these yet. You're viewing it for the first time with the people watching this video.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
All right, let's do it. And this is a horizontal video. So for anyone who's a TikTok fan, it will not be on TikTok. I mean, unless somebody clips it and then does something with it. But native on YouTube. So first question is similar to what Max was saying up front. Do teens think adults include them in decisions that affect their lives?
I'd say relatively depends on the family. I think they do to an extent. I think there's a lot of different family types that are out there. As someone who's kind of looked a little bit into the concept, I think the general consensus is that kids will kind of be made aware of the situation and ask a general input, but I don't think a lot of kids these days will really have a lot of say on the thing before it happens. Suppose, and I think it also depends on the the situation at hand, right? For example, if someone's moving, I don't think the child's input is definitely important, but I don't think it's considered as seriously as, say, the parents who are looking for some specific things versus a child who might not exactly be looking for things I don't know, the utilities or how a garage or how a basement is structured. I think I'd say around if I were to give it a percentage, maybe 30% involvement with the decisions, I think is my final answer.
And Max, what about you?
I think I think a bit lower. We actually did a pulse survey over at Do Something a couple of years ago, or this year we did it again, that showed that only 16% of young people felt lawmakers consider their voices in policies. Now that's lawmakers, not like adults in general. And it was a rather small sample size, I think about 350 young people. But I think, young people have a lot to say, teens have a lot to say. And I don't know that they often feel like they get heard, especially as it relates to what's happening in schools, what's happening with issues that ultimately affect their lives. So I'm going to say that only 20% of young people, 20% of teens think that adults are including them in decisions.
Okay, well, I will say that as an adult, I don't know if lawmakers are always consulting me either. But as far as what we saw from the survey for youth, and I said teens, it's 12 to 17, quite a bit said always and often.
Very interesting. Wow.
Interesting.
That makes me feel really nice, actually. It's good to know that, I don't know, we're being taken seriously with our ideas and inputs.
Yeah, it makes me wonder too, our polling was more about lawmakers. And so this is positive in that adults, at least more generally, like other figures in teens' lives are consulting them and checking in with them. So maybe it's really the lawmakers that we need to turn to.
Next question is, are most students allowed to use their phones during school? So this is nationwide. It's not just East Coast, not just, certain grade, 12 to 17 across the country.
Okay. I think my school kind of has the general, the most used policy when it comes to that. To the extent that I'd say that phone usage is pretty allowed with during break times. I'd say phones are kind of, you can do whatever you want. And then during class times, I think it's only with teacher approval that phones are allowed to be used. Because I think the main usage that you would get out of a phone in a classroom is just music during work and maybe sharing something or joining a group activity that's online. I don't think a lot of people are actually scrolling through TikTok while class is going on. And if they are, I don't think it's necessarily allowed. So I think the answer is allowed, but only really when teachers can really only with teacher approval, I think is what the thing is.
Well, Shaun, you've got much more lived experience to draw from on this than I do. So I did take kind of a look around, and I think right now over 30, maybe almost 35 states have some kind of ban or are considering a policy. But I think all that's pretty recent, and a lot of states aren't rolling those out until the beginning of this school year. So some students haven't necessarily encountered them just yet. So I'm going to say 40% of students said that they were banned or allowed, but not during class.
All right, specific one. So we did have, that's exactly right. If you have 60% allowed but not in class, then 40 would be the opposite.
Very interesting. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
A lot of bans.
A lot of things that my school's been rolling out actually as just the alternative to using your phone, i.e. class activities, can be done through the mandated Chromebooks, or other devices that are a little bit more controlled, maybe an iPad or a laptop, as opposed to a phone that's small, it's compact, you can kind of use it whenever. I think I'm also tying iPhone usage to AirPod usage, because there's this one class that I take that's really big on you're not allowed to have any headphones on at all. So I thought that just because of how hard my teacher cracked down on that must be an outlier. But that also, I think that checks out actually with the entire idea of just no inherently distracting items when it comes to class time. I agree with this. I think I like this policy.
Yeah, well, so this is what people have currently, and then we'd asked. Well, we'll get to it in a bit, but we asked where phones are most likely to be banned. So West,
I
South,
see.
Midwest, or Northeast. Any predictions?
Huh. I'm not necessarily like more geographically inclined. Um, I think I think it would probably be around the western areas because I think those have larger populations of just people in general. From what I kind of know about how California operates. Um, to that end, I think a little bit more like generalized and thus I think stricter rules will kind of be like widespread is my guess. But again, I'm not really the most like knowledgeable on how demographics work within the nation.
I'm gonna go out on a little bit of a limb. Shaun, I was also thinking the West for those same reasons, but Florida was actually the first state to pass a ban, which is a
Huh.
pretty big state, and there's been a couple other states in the South
Really?
that have sort of joined their ranks. So I'm gonna say South.
Very interesting.
All right, research was correct. It is the
Ooh.
South.
It's the South. Wow.
Wow. Feeling proud of myself for that one.
Nice.
This is not my first inclination.
So then we looked at already what people have in place. So now it's what do students want to have? What rules, kind of? So do they want to have smartphones during class? Do you, Shaun?
Yeah, I couldn't imagine a world where anybody would actively say that they don't want their phone in class. Maybe someone like me who kind of has a problem with like usage is my only guess. I think given the opportunity, because again, I think like even so much as like just music, right? During like like independent study sessions or independent classwork, is just that much. It just makes the like I guess experience of doing work just that much better. I have to say like a good maybe 60 to 70% of kids had to have said that they would like their phone in class.
You know, I think teens are, I want to believe that they're somewhat measured on this. I think that they, you know, if all things were being equal, like they would want to have their phones, but I think they also know the pull that they have on them and how distracting they can be.
Right.
And so I think it might have come out a bit more somewhere in the middle. And so my guess is that maybe about 30% said they would like them to be allowed in class if teachers say it's okay, kind of keeping some of that autonomy for the teacher.
All right, the result is
So people agree with the current rules. Very interesting. Allowed but not in class.
Yeah, it looks like more than half of both boys and girls said that they would prefer them to be allowed but not in class. So like allowed in school, but not necessarily during class time.
Yeah, we had about 24, 22% said allowed anytime. So it's boys and girls, so 23 in the middle. About 12, 13% said completely banned. And then, yeah, I'd say most were saying, just not in class.
And that's interesting because if you take the red and the blue together, which is sort of still some amount of a ban, it's a pretty large majority. Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah.
Okay, next one. This is not necessarily about class, but maybe if your phone is banned, then you would feel this while you're in class. So do boys or girls feel more FOMO, fear of missing out, around notifications?
Between the two, like, is it like that boys ask more FOMO than girls, or girls ask more FOMO than boys?
Yeah, so it was like the question was, how often do you feel FOMO for notifications? Like, you have a notification, you can't look at it. And then it's like always, usually, sometimes, rarely. So just generally speaking, like who is more likely to say always?
And it just this one I'm more confident has to be on like the higher end. I think FOMO is the symptom of our anxious generation. just notifications. Like Instagram has been rolling out like these completely irrelevant like things, like this person commented on this other person's post, and neither two people have anything to do with you. So just like the concept of a notification to draw you back into a social media app, just saying anything they can to get you back into the app. FOMO comes from like the idea, just like people will never post a bad time on their timeline, or they'll post extremes. They won't post like they wouldn't tend to like represent themselves in a bad light on like their Instagram. And I think just seeing that, not experiencing that, I say it really has to be on the higher end. I think roughly like 70 to 80% of kids experience this notification FOMO.
Do you think it's about equal between boys and girls?
Yeah, I'd say. Yeah, I have friends in both genders that definitely are very avid Snapchat users. A lot of my friends are very active on Snapchat. Like the idea of like keeping up a streak, something I never personally understood. My longest Duolingo streak was like a month, but I think just like the fear of like missing out, or like letting that streak die, or just missing out on like information about your friends' lives, maybe. Because then what, Instagram stories are also like on a time basis, so maybe missing out on that. I think it should be pretty equal between both genders, I'd say.
Max, anything you want to weigh in on that?
Usually
Usually with questions like this, people are like, nobody wants to say anything wrong.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like I should only be speaking from my experience as a boy in school, and I didn't have a phone in school, so I don't know. But I think it's probably about equal. I think that, girls can be, maybe like it's a stereotype, but more social. So not necessarily about their cell phone use, but more social creatures. And so maybe the girls edged out boys just a little bit.
All right. I think you nailed that one again. But if you look at the always, often, sometimes combined, we are at that like 60 to 80% range.
Wow.
And this is specifically while at school.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That makes sense. I think the rarely or never, or kind of just like the most of sometimes, probably comes from the ban's notifications are turned off during class times. If we really stick to like the entire completely no phone, I have a lot of teachers that are like really cracked down on you if notification goes off, when they specifically said like no phones. So I think just like things like do not disturb will prevent notifications from coming through for a majority of the day. And then because you're focused on schoolwork, and then it makes sense how that works.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about how a ban might impact how someone would respond to this, right? So it's like, if I know that there's a ban in place, I know that I just don't have access to my phone, and it's something that's just my reality for the rest of the school year and the rest of the school day. Like, I just don't have as much FOMO because everyone else is in the same situation,
Yeah.
Could be interesting to do this again in another year or so and see if there are changes.
Oh, opportunity for me to say you can with YouGov.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, that's a little sales. Okay. Next question is, what would teens do if they didn't have a smartphone? So it was like, if you didn't have a smartphone for 48 hours, which of these activities would you do? And then mark all that apply. So we're looking for ones that the most amount of, and I guess I say teens, 12 to 17 selected.
It really did, like, so my friend group, my inner circle, consists of a very, very like colorful and like very ranged like personality types and individuals. So everything here just feels very equally like plausible. If I were to kind of, so to that end, I'll try to take my personal experiences into account. So first, for the anxious or stressed, I think that has to be a good, I don't want to say majority, but a very good chunk of the population would probably feel some kind of anxiousness around not touching their phone for a while. Um, Specifically, their phone is very interesting because a lot of social media apps are very like adaptable to what an iPad or a laptop. You can scroll through shorts, reels, TikToks on any device rather. So I think the like feeling of like neediness of like the distraction would probably come from a different device. Regardless of that, I think maybe the notifications or the checking up with other people, streaks, stories, would probably the FOMO would probably be the one thing that causes the most fear of stress. TV or streaming shows, I think, would be the most used. Like other alternative pastime, mainly because they kind of bring you the same effects as social media. And I think just they have like insane entertainment value. A lot of the TikToks that I see are about like pop culture and media. Outside doing physical activities will probably be the next best thing. A lot of the school's populations are really into sports. Feel bored, not know what to do is a very plausible idea. I don't think a lot of my friends actively indulge in like books or like read media like on their own right. It's usually like more mandated towards school. Although that doesn't say we don't enjoy reading. We do definitely have a lot of like we have like book clubs and such at our school. But I don't think it's like the go-to. Sleeping more is my personal preference. I would definitely try to catch up on like a lot of missed sleep during that time. Family, friends or family in person is a little interesting with distance. Not a lot of my friend group has driving licenses yet. Um, I don't think anybody would actively try to do schoolwork or study more though in my friend group. We're very like entertainment based, but we all get good grades. Like mostly A's and B's, but we all hate it to death. Um, and I guess if you have, I know one specific friend that would really enjoy the break from their phone. And then we would all end up just hopping on a game on Steam or something to just hang out with each other and play a game at the end. Yeah, play video games or use other devices. I think if I were to break this down based on my own personal experiences.
Well, and
Um,
then, so Max, any maybe three that stand out for you?
I think even just looking at this question, I could imagine that even for myself, I would struggle with answering it aspirationally versus the reality of how I'd want to spend the time. But I think that hanging out with friends and family may have popped to the top two or three. Even though teens are on their phone while they're with their friends, I think again they're social beings. They really want to be with friends and family, and so they're eager to get more of that time back. And then I would agree with Shaun that sleeping more. So I know a lot of teens and adults engage in revenge bedtime procrastination. I don't know if you're familiar with this concept, but
yes.
staying up late to regain sort of a sense of control over your schedule, even though you know it's going to impact you the next morning. So I think sleep more.
Yeah, maybe not consciously, but I would say that I understand that effect. All right, so from Shaun, I heard kind of TV, gaming, maybe a little bit of the anxieties around FOMO, and then a bit of sleep more, and then hang out with friends and family. Definitely not reading or schoolwork. Not really, but let's see. And these are the top five. So I think everything that was said was up there.
Yeah, but watch TV and stream shows. Did we hit that one? I don't know if we hit that one.
Right. I think that was my main guess. I think
that was okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Like so many people, both in my friend group and outside my friend group, my own mother are very into this show called The Summer I Turned Pretty. So much so that I started watching an episode. I'm hooked. I'm hooked myself. I understand the appeal. I'm Team Conrad, if anybody's asking. But I think like Netflix, Hulu, HBO, the amount of streaming services there are, the amount of shows that have been made, the like from the classics to the latest like rom-coms. I think a lot of people would actually prefer to go with the TV show over their phone in this day and age. If I would be so inclined to make the assumption.
The TV show doesn't send you notifications.
They don't need to. It's engaging in its own right. I think that's why the appeal is there, right? It doesn't feel like I'm being like latched into something. It feels like I'm taking the like the chance to sit down and engage with this piece of media that I really enjoy, as opposed to a mindless scroll or just a necessary follow up / check in with the people I care about. It's something I'm doing on my own volition. I think is where the appeal comes from with like TV shows and pieces of media that's like streamed.
All right, we've got, I think, 2 more questions left.
Cool.
So first one was, we had study or do homework if they didn't have their phone. Which age was most likely to say that? So we were able to segment it by 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Was there any age specifically that was more likely to say they would study without a phone?
Oh, I'd say like the older ages. I think like 15, 16, 17. High school definitely, as stakes are beginning to improve. I'd say 16 to 17, especially because junior year is the like really big year for every high schooler. To that end, I think they really need to lock in and get their grades up. And they would probably be a little bit more focused in those ages as opposed to like the younger 12, 13 where stakes aren't as high.
All right, Max, any thoughts?
Yeah, that's exactly my thinking. Junior year is crunch time. So I'm going to say it's also when, frankly, like young people start getting like their license, more independence, forming their identity, getting all these freedoms. And so there's a lot pulling them away from their studying at the same time. So I'm going to say 17.
All right, so stakes are higher with the phone and higher with the studying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly right. 16 was the highest,
16.
but 17 was the lowest.
Interesting. Maybe there's like, they start figuring out how to navigate between 16 and 17. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. The spike in age 16 is very interesting.
It is.
It's the beginning of the junior year, right? It's like they just started. Like junior year for me is something every single adult in my life has told me is going to be the most important like year of your life. They phrase it like that. To that end, the entryway into that big time as a 16-year-old was some of the most anxiety-inducing months of my life. I will say that with complete confidence. To that end, like the diligence that I did express because of my anxiousness in not just studying, but everything else I was doing, like my extracurriculars, my like college applications, like everything to get that resume like as good as it can be was highly self-destructive, but like very like adamant, I'd say.
It was self-constructive, right? You're doing things for setting yourself up.
To the extent, but I think like just unhealthy mindsets developed. Like if I'm not doing something, I'm like just like the self-loathing of like if I'm like workaholism, I think is what it's called. Where you don't feel comfortable if you're not doing something to further yourself or study more, or just anxieties of like I'm going to fail something if I don't like spend every waking moment of my life studying. It's just like the general anxieties and depressions and just mental health issues that come with competition in selective schools.
Yeah, a lot of pressure.
Yeah, something that I'm actively working to combat. I have a very heavy interest in clinical psychology, which is why I'm so excited to be here.
Cool. Yeah, and we touch on that a little bit at the very end. So the last question is: do teens today, and teens being 12 to 17, think their lives are better or worse than their parents had it at the same age?
I'm a second generation. My parents were immigrants. I think that question answers itself from my personal experience. To the extent that I have it at least like close to 150. If I want to give it like, God, my parents keep telling me stories about how they came to this country with nothing but $100 bill and a dream. Um, and they turned it into this like fantastically beautiful upper middle class household. Um, to that, and the amount of effort and fear and just like sadness and depression and everything that must have gotten put into building this, for me to be able to wake up in as comfortable as a bed as I do is honestly a blessing, and really shows how my life has must be significantly more comfortable than my parents must have had it.
Do you think
Um
that view is echoed by your peers around the country?
right. I'm trying to figure out, I think the close like the correlation to that question would probably just be the correlation to like the immigrant demographic. I honestly I can't really say experiences for like this one friend I have, right? A lot of my like Caucasian friends have parents that have like went to the schools that they're going to, and a lot of them, their older brothers have gotten into some really selective schools due to, I think it's called like legacy hire. um I think to that end, I don't mean to say this in a way that like throws shade on anybody. I think these are just like my general opinions and my ideas on how those that haven't come from immigrant backgrounds kind of operate. To that end, I'd say just somebody who has been in the country already would probably have a lot more similar experiences to people, to their like kids who stay in the country, and thus like their margin for like lives being better or worse, as subjective as the question is, would be a little bit smaller than those who have experienced like completely different worlds, like the east coast of the world to the west coast of the world, and the migration as such. I think the divide between that would be a lot more greater. And I think I'm one of the people that can say that I was on the better end of the spectrum when it comes to that.
Cool. And Max, what do you think? Better, worse, same? Also an option.
Yeah, well, I think this is an interesting question given the rest of the conversation because I think technology actually plays a big part
It
in
does.
it. I think that even though young people are considered, Gen Z and Gen Alpha right behind them, considered like super socially conscious, very aware of the challenges that they're inheriting, just the day-to-day experience of life kind of through the lens of technology, I think they think it's better. I think the sort of convenience, the access to information, I think the majority of teens would say they do live a better life than their parents did.
All right, so we're looking at the left column here. So better, most said better. There is a slight discrepancy between boys and girls, but on the whole, everybody thinks their life is better than their parents had it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So.
Although it's sort of half and a half, so it's kind of it's a slight majority.
Yeah, I guess if you count the worst and the not sure all in one, and then the better, it's about half and half.
Yeah, so definitely some head scratching on this one for half of the teens that filled it out. They're kind of like not quite sure.
I can empathize heavily with those who answered worse, I'd say. I think something that I've kind of experienced with the technology usage is that like your problems aren't exactly your problems anymore. I think with the exposure to everything else that's going on in the world, kind of will weigh on an individual. It weighs on me heavily. A lot of people are like, a lot of people out there are suffering a lot, and I think my parents didn't have that growing up. They kind of just were stuck in their own communities and the beliefs that their communities shared, and not a lot of outside influence. My mother and father exclusively mentioned how there's like, so I come from India. My parents come from India, and they mentioned how like the what with things like families kind of living all together in one household, like villages kind of knowing everybody's names and lives and backstories, the close knit community and like the ideas and worldviews that are fostered and reinforced heavily in those communities versus us, which kind of everyone else's experience are a part of our experiences too, and that's a lot to take on, especially with our developing mindset. So I kind of sympathize with those people who kind of can see themselves kind of having a little bit of a worse mental state and a worse life than their parents did.
Yeah, I guess it's like you mentioned at one point, it's a subjective question, and it's pretty nuanced more than just is it better or worse?
Yeah.
Well, that is the survey part of this. Thank you for braving and predicting what you might find in the results. I guess I'll say that people who want to dig more into the survey can go to yougov.com/realitychecks. Max, Shaun, where can people find you?
I think I'll definitely try to continue my work with Do Something. I'll be exploring a lot of other opportunities as well. And there will be a time in which I do kind of eventually make myself a social media presence. To that end, when I do, I'll contact you all, kind of link my socials if I do get on that, because I would like to kind of take a lot more of an activism role when it comes to mental health. Eventually becoming a clinical psychologist as a career path. And yeah, I think that's kind of what my path will lie going in the future.
Fantastic. And you can find Do Something at dosomething.org. You can find Do Something Strategic at dosomethingstrategic.work. And yeah, look forward to having conversations with you all that are interested in this topic and what young people think about it.
Well, thank you so much for joining, and have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Reality Checks. Everything you saw in this episode was based on a survey of 600 U.S. youth, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, based off of YouGov surveys. If you want more insights into that survey, head over to yougov.com/realitychecks, and you can dig into the findings. Thanks again for watching, and have a good rest of your day.